and one of the fences for do not grind on Shabbat, a rabbi said you cannot take medicine on Shabbat. Yeah? Okay, I mean that was the truth. The truth was that's what medicine was. If you ever gone to an alternative medicine, they bring you herbs and they make them and they put them in bottles for you, and that's a real problem. The question is, what about today when our medicines come in all kinds of packages and pills and bottles? You don't even know how to make your own medicine if you wanted to. You don't even know how. Most opinions say, even though the reason doesn't exist, the halakha still does. Rabbi Shlomo Kluger didn't buy that. Rabbi Shlomo Kluger says, I don't get it. The whole prohibition is far-fetched in the first place. And especially now when we're not making our own medicine, not even we're not making, but we don't even know how to make our own medicine. Even if we wanted to make it, we wouldn't know how to start. Today, his opinion is that you're allowed to take medicine on Shabbat. And it's because of Rav Shlomo Kluger that in some situations we do allow people to take medicine on Shabbat, even though there are some situations where we don't. Those details can be discussed in the Hilchot Shabbat class, but for right now, Rav Shlomo Kluger was that person who stepped out and said, listen, the reason changed, so the halakha should change also. And he wasn't afraid to do that. Yes. It opens up a can of worms.
Continue this way with other halakha?
Why do you think that so many rabbis didn't like his opinion? Because the moment you open up this can of worms, that's where you can go with that. But in truth, Rav Shlomo Kluger...
He did it only with this one.
Yes. Rav Shlomo Kluger, though, wasn't original in his thinking. Rav Shlomo Kluger didn't wake up one day. Rav Shlomo Kluger didn't live so long ago. Maybe someone could Google it while we're here. Rav Shlomo Kluger lived maybe 150 years ago, if I had to give it a shot. Maybe I'm wrong, but not so long ago. In the last 300 years for sure. He didn't show up on the scene and just make up a halakha. He had a precedent for it. Maybe the precedent is something that you don't know that you do every Shabbat. Something that in other communities they would tell you you're breaking Shabbat for. Especially in Sepharadic communities. In Lithuanian Jewish communities also, they would hold you breaking Shabbat, violating Shabbat. But something that I think everybody in this room does.
What?
Have you ever clapped your hands on Shabbat?
Yeah, clap your hands.
Like that.
Or
Right here.
banging on the table on Shabbat?
Yeah.
Those are both prohibited. You're not allowed to do them on Shabbat. You open up Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch says, Asur lashmiya kol. You're not allowed to make noises, not with your hands and on your hands, or your hands on the table.
What was it?
Whistling is something else.
Oh, okay.
Something else. There are poskim who allow it. There are poskim who don't allow it. It seems to be that Ashkenazim are strict. Some of the Sephardim are strict. None of the Yemenites are. It depends on. That's already something else.
Okay, so what time?
What? How long ago did you live? Did you find him?
It's loading.
Oh, okay.
So, found him. We're getting there.
So clearly a while ago. He's got to bring it back. Why are you not allowed to clap your hands on Shabbat or make a rhythm on Shabbat? Explain.
You're gonna make an instrument.
Very nice. Shema yavo letaken klei shir. Maybe you're going to come and to make or build, some say fix, a musical instrument. You know, everyone's banging around, so you're like, hey, you know what, I'm going to make my own bongo drums. And you take out some of the dead skin over there, you wrap it around the barrel, you tie a thing, and you start banging on it too. Or whoa, look at this, these guys are playing, I want to make my own guitar over there. They bring a guitar, they add the strings, they start playing. And that was a very,
the brass French word.
that was a very real reality. I mean, especially when musical instruments were very makeshift. I mean, people you made things out of everything. A person was not allowed to do this because he might come to create his own musical instrument.
He died in 1869.
1869. So about 150 years ago is right. Okay, Baruch Hashem. So here's the story. The Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Israelish, asks over there, and he says, I don't understand. How is it that we see Jews clapping their hands on Shabbat, and we're not mochin biyadan? You know what mochin means? We don't protest. How come we don't scream at them? How come we don't hit them? How come we don't tell them they're breaking Shabbat? People do this all the time. It's against halakha. So why are we quiet? They drive, and we make a big deal about it. They talk on the phone, suddenly they clap their hands, we don't make a big deal about it. What makes this halakha different? Tosafot says, I don't know the answer to the question. But maybe I can suggest that because these people don't know how to make musical instruments, they think the halakha doesn't apply to them. Even though they're wrong, we should judge them favorably and assume that that's how they think. Rabbi Moshe Israelish, the Ramah, he says, that's what I think is true. We tell people they're not allowed to clap their hands in Shabbat, but if they do clap their hands, we don't publicly humiliate them as we should. The reason being because they think that the halakha doesn't apply today because they don't know how to play musical instruments. The only time we found the poskim clapping and jumping and dancing was on which holiday? No. That's already Chol HaMoed, you don't have to worry about it. When? Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah. On Simchat Torah, the Arizal would jump and dance and clap. And because of that, we have a rule that you can't be holier than the Arizal. So we jump and sing and clap and dance on Simchat Torah. Chacham Ovadia says that if you ever see somebody who's Sepharadi, who's clapping and jumping up and down on dancing or banging on Shabbat, you have to grab him and tell him you should be aware you are violating the words of Maran Rabbi Yosef Karo. That's what you should do. He says there's no room for this. This is Ashkenazim, so you should tell them that what they're doing is violating halakha, but you cannot grab them and scream at them because they have on who to rely. So when Rosh Shlomo Kluger rolls in, he's essentially building off of this argument. He's saying, listen, it doesn't apply. And what they were worried about was once you do this, to this, and then that, and the third thing, so you're going to get rid of half of the Torah. And it seems to be that's the reason why most people don't clap and sing and dance. I once asked Harav Peretz, and he said today he doesn't see so much of a reason to be strict about this halakha, because he knows Chacham Ovadia took it very seriously. But the point of Tosafot is right, that it doesn't really apply. Okay, we can't do this to everything, but especially something that most of Klal Yisrael does already today, there's room to be lenient about it. I mean, the Hasidim, if you didn't let them clap, they'd probably die in Shabbat. They don't know what to do with that. So Rav Shlomo Kluger comes along, and he's trying to understand this whole piece of Shulchan Aruch. What does it mean, less than 4 amot? What is it talking about? So he says the following, Va'od Sham, and also there, this is the second, third paragraph, depending on how you count, Ve'od, it says in bold letters, Ve'od Sham, and also there, Be'igrot Moshe, in the Igrot Moshe, Nishal leHasbir, he was asked to explain that Shitat Rav Shlomo Kluger Zan, the opinion of Rabbi Shlomo Kluger, of blessed memory. Shekotev, that he writes, Shemiktzat Rosho Mechuseh, that if only the minority of your head is covered, Mutar lelech, you're allowed to walk, but only pachot mi-4 amot, only less than 4 amot. Everyone, do you want that paper? No? Okay. Only less than 4 amot. What is he saying? What is he saying?
Other than that, you're supposed to have a big one.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, you have to have a big one that covers the majority of your head. And more than that, what if you don't have any kippah? Can you walk less than 4? But what can you imply from here?
Say that you can't walk at all.
Seems that you can't walk at all. Very nice. Seems that you can't walk at all. So what you're saying is true. More than 4, you have to have a kippah that covers the majority of your head. Less than 4, if it's the minority of your head. Or, I don't know, is there a better word for that? Okay. So here's what he says. Hu dochet dvarav elu. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein pushes off these words. V'kotev, and he writes, She'en shum hechrech lefaresh perush kazeh. There is no reason to explain this kind of explanation. Shal kol panim hu zar v'dachuk. That at the very best, it's foreign and a forced read. He's saying, Rav Shlomo Kluger, I don't know where you're coming from. With all due respect, a small kippah is not a big enough kippah, and a big kippah is for... He says, I don't understand where you pick this idea from. He says, therefore, I don't agree that you could follow this, the halakha. That's not the proper explanation. Omnam, but, hu metaretz et dvarav barichut, he spends a lot of time answering the words of Rabbi Shlomo Kluger. V'yotzeh lemaskana, and he comes to the conclusion, shlefi dat Rav Shlomo Kluger, that according to Rav Shlomo Kluger, kisui miktzat rosho, covering the minority of your head, nechshav shaveh, it's considered exactly equal, lerosh hagalui legamre, to a head that is completely uncovered. Somebody who wants can look there and they go to Moshe. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein is saying that according to Rav Shlomo Kluger, if your kippah is not big enough, you're not covering your head at all. If your kippah only covers the minority of your head, not the majority of your head, that's not considered a kippah at all. It's like walking without a kippah. So what do we have now in answer to those, tiny kippahs?
$50.
It's not tiny. Everything.
A lot of kippahs. I mean, I don't know about my kippah. Does it cover the majority of my? I don't know. What is the head? Your neck. I'm assuming when you say head,
Hair?
it's the part. You could say hair. You could, but I'm assuming it's the part that you would normally wear your kippah on. So probably, if you would draw a line somewhere above your ears, around your head, it should cover the majority of that. But this is my own opinion. I don't have a source for this. I mean, because everyone would agree that if you wear your kippah on your neck, then you're not actually covering kippah.
You don't say a lady and a man.
There could be such a thing between a lady and a man, that if she covers a minority of her head, I don't want to say this on record though, okay.
Pause.
A lady, you can't do that.
That pause a lot of things.
I'm recording again. So, that's a fascinating discussion. Ladies' head covering. After you've studied the topic of ladies' head covering, you'll look around and say, oh, we thought those people were covering their hair, right? Or you'll say, oh, a lot of things come out from the whole topic of head covering. There are a few ladies in the Beit Knesset that cover their head, some of them are your wives, they cover their head k'mo shetzarich with a real head covering. You should wish them chazak u'vol. They're doing a big mitzvah. The Mekubalim say that all the beracha that comes to your house comes from the fact that your wife covers her hair. It's not a small thing. It's a big, big thing. So, the Kav HaChaim, which is before we go to the Kav HaChaim. I was listening to an interesting class, and this is exactly classic because Jack just walked in. The class was sent to me by somebody in the Kollel about the philosophical differences between the Sephardic and Ashkenazic psak, halachic decisions. And as an interesting note, he mentions that, for example, if you open up a halachic work, let's say questions and answers from a rabbi, generally, those are not arranged in chronological order. They're arranged by order of importance. And therefore, you'll find some of them arranged according to order of Shulchan Aruch, but not all of them. It says you'll find sometimes that by looking at the first letter, you can already see what's important to the person who's writing the book. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, for example, the first book he wrote of Responsa, the first question that he's dealing with is, how big does your kippah have to be? That's the discussion. The entire discussion is, how big does your kippah have to be? And he goes to the writings of Rav Shlomo Kluger and back and forth, and that's where he comes from. On the parallel,
What is his conclusion?
what he just told us, that it should cover the majority of your head.
Einstein,
Yeah, Rav Moshe Feinstein, yeah, that's his, seems to be his conclusion.
not all the majority.
At least his opinion in Rav Shlomo Kluger. It could be that his opinion personally is so long as you can see it from every side of your head. That would be the smallest kosher kippah. If you open up the Otzara Michtavim, Rabbi Yosef Mesas, he was one of the chief rabbis of Morocco. Last 100 years. He made Aliyah to Israel. He lived in Haifa, was the chief rabbi of Haifa. Rabbi Yosef Mesas, the first response that he has in his questions and answers are about how you shouldn't learn too much Torah at night. Because you shouldn't stay awake learning Torah. You should go to sleep. It's healthy to get a good night of sleep. You should wake up in the morning and study Torah. And that if you do have to learn at night, it shouldn't be something heavy. It should be something you'll understand, you'll enjoy, you'll appreciate, so on and so forth. He speaks a lot about sleeping, getting good night's sleep, and being a healthy person. It was just interesting. He was pointing out that what was important to Rabbi Yosef Masas was actually the opposite of the details, was the bigger picture for him, which was to learn Torah, but don't exaggerate. Don't learn too much Torah. Whereas, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, the discussion was, how big should your kippah be for it to be considered a kosher kippah? Essentially, you'll find that this does happen to be what separates very often, not in a bad way, in a good way, when you look at Ashkenazi halacha, you should know that the details are very well thought out. There are reasons for details. The details were there's a reason why this is done and not that is done. Everything. If it's the details of to which direction you open up the Aron Kodesh or where the Chazan stands in the synagogue, or everything has a detailed reason and explanation. According to the Sephardim, they didn't spend so much time on the details. For them, the details were actually not so important. That was rather the bigger picture of how does it all fit into the bigger picture. And if the bigger picture can sometimes push off details, then it will. A classic example, I remember once, I was the rabbi of in a yeshiva in Israel, and I was the rabbi there for Shabbat, and some guy came and opened up the Aron Kodesh in the wrong direction. Hashem Yishmo. And he opened up the curtain to this way, not that way, whatever was his problem. If you know there's a machloket, there is the Pitkei Tshuva says you open up one way, and another one says you open up that. I got it. And so whatever says, oh no, don't do it, you have to close it again, and they're screaming at him in front of the whole Beit Knesset. Or even a more practical example, you may see him a lot. The guy who takes the Torah back from the Bima to the Aron Kodesh. You know, sometimes he goes the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes he goes back the way he came from. What's the big deal if he goes back the wrong way? What happened? What if he went the wrong way? So what happened to him? What if the guy reads the Haftarah and he's not standing on the side of the Bima, he's standing in the front because that's what he thinks he's supposed to stand. So why correct him? So I can give you a list of things like that. So I agree the details are important, but the question is, if it's going to involve everyone else, oh, don't do it! So then you messed up the bigger picture to deal with a detail. So you'll find that both approaches are genuine. You need both of them. They balance each other out very, very well. But we shouldn't get caught up in either of them. There's value to details, and sometimes we forget about them. And there's value to the bigger picture, and sometimes we forget about that too. The Kav HaChaim. The Kav HaChaim was written by Rabbi Yaakov Chaim Sofer, who also passed away, if I'm not mistaken, in the first half of the 1900s. Maybe even later. I'm going to maybe ask to check up again.
Yeah.
The Kav HaChaim. There are two Kav HaChaims. There's a Kav HaChaim Palaji and a Kav HaChaim Sofer. We're talking about the Kav HaChaim Sofer.
Is anything related to the Chafetz Chaim?
No, actually not at all. This one's from Iraq and that one's from Poland. But I'm sure somewhere now they're learning Torah together. So, the Kav HaChaim is a Sephardic commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, reminiscent of the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah is an Ashkenazi running commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. The Kav HaChaim is the Sephardic version. The last volume of the Kav HaChaim was actually not written by the Kav HaChaim, by Rabbi Yaakov Sofer. He passed away, and for years the last volume was never finished, until the children approached Rabbi Ovadia Yosef and asked if he would please write the last volume for him. So actually, when you count Rabbi Ovadia's books, he deserves one more book that no one gives him credit for, is a running commentary on the Shulchan Aruch in the style of the author, meaning he writes the same writing style as the first 8 or 9, I don't remember how many volumes inside of the Kav HaChaim, so that it flows and you can understand it the same way you would understand the first one. There's a grandson today, he claims that Rabbi Ovadia Yosef doesn't know what he's talking about, and how he made up his own commentary and he shouldn't learn it and he should write a new one. Okay, so because of him, because of this grandson, the Kav HaChaim print has never been reprinted. And so the only way you can get a copy is the one that he agrees to sell, which is a bunch of photocopies. I have it in my home. It's like the book, brand new on the outside, and inside you're looking at a photocopy from the whenever it comes from. No, he refuses to allow it to be updated because he's in this personal fight with Rabbi Ovadia Yosef and his family, and it's an interesting story. I don't know if he's a big Talmid Chacham or not, but to fight with Chacham Ovadia in regards of like, do you know halakha or not, it's a little bit, okay. So the Kav HaChaim says the following: Mevi divrei Zohar HaKadosh. She brings down the words of the Zohar, the Parshat Pinchas, in the Parshat Pinchas Shetaknu Le'el, which we mentioned already above. Remember we mentioned the Zohar. The Kotev, and he says Shaar ba'amot asur b'ginui harosh, that walking 4 amot without a head covering is only prohibited rak leTalmid Chacham, only to a Torah scholar. V'od Katav, he also writes Sham over there, sheTalmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, yilech achei divrei HaZohar HaKadosh, should adhere to the words of the Zohar HaKadosh. Ushaar kol adam, and every other person yaseh mividat chasidut, should also do it, but not in order to fulfill the words of the Zohar, but rather in order to have an extra level of piety. And he says, I know, Talmidei Chachamim, you can find a way to get out of it. But you should follow the Zohar, which tells you that even less than 4 amot, you should be careful to walk without a head covering. In this regard, you would also be considered Talmidei Chachamim, and you should be careful about it as well. You learn Torah on an in-depth basis, which already makes you not normal people. You already are Talmidei Chachamim, and therefore you have an obligation to act according to the halachot of Talmidei Chachamim. Let that weigh down on your shoulders, guys.
Yeah, I was wondering about that earlier.
But he died in 1939.
1939, okay. Baruch Hashem. I mean, not Baruch Hashem that he died, Baruch Hashem that it wasn't like, 1700s and then it'll be oh man, I made it up.
75
The Kav HaChaim and the Ben Ish Chai are almost single-handedly responsible for integrating many Kabbalistic customs into Sepharadic Halacha. Until then, you'll find a strong resistance of even the Sephardim. Let the Kabbalah stay for the Mekubalim, and let us do what it is that Halacha says. The Kav HaChaim, as well as the Ben Ish Chai, almost around the same periods, were very influential in, we're writing a book of Halacha. We also happen to be Kabbalists, so we'll just randomly throw in there, the Zohar says X, Y. So what are you going to do? You're learning a book of Halacha. It says you're allowed to do this, but the Zohar says you're going to burn in hell. So what are you supposed to say? We're like, come on, what are you going to do in that situation? And essentially, I'm exaggerating about the burn in hell part, but what are you going to do? You're reading a book of Halacha, and he tells you can do it, but you're going to mess with the Zohar. Who wants to mess with the Zohar? So, essentially, they integrated many halachot according to Kabbalah. Muvah b'Mishnah Berurah. It's brought down in the Mishnah Berurah, who, by the way, is responsible in Ashkenaz for adding in Kabbalistic ideas to halachot. It's known that whenever the Mishnah Berurah writes the word ita, it's written, but he writes it in Aramaic. That means it's written somewhere that he can't tell you because it's a Kabbalistic source. And I once asked Rabbi Tendler of the Ner Yisrael Yeshiva, Hadav Shalom, I asked him, so what do you do if you're not a Kabbalist? Do you do the things the Mishnah Berurah says you should do according to Kabbalah? He says, once the Mishnah Berurah brought it into existence as a halakha, so you're allowed to follow it. It's no longer considered showing off or trying to be extra holy. If he already felt that it was important for the people to do, you can do it as well. The Kollel Rabbi, should live and be well, he gave me a similar answer regarding the rulings of the Ben Ish Chai. If you see something the Ben Ish Chai says you should do, he says you have no idea why it is the Ben Ish Chai says you should do it, but it's according to Kabbalah. He says you could still do it as long as you have in mind that I'm sure there are people in Yerushalayim somewhere who know what they're doing, so my actions should work together with their intentions, and we should be able to do the mitzvah in its completion. Muvah b'Mishnah Berurah. It's brought down in the Mishnah Berurah. This is written by who? The Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen Kagan. He was the Rebbe of Rav Kook. One of them. And the Mishnah Berurah writes, Shelo yelech b'gilui harosh. He said you should not walk with an uncovered head, afilu babayit, even inside of your house. V'kol sheken tachat avir HaShamayim, and how much more so outside, under the sky. Sheyesh yizaher lekule alma, you have to just be careful not to walk with a head covering everywhere. Don't give me differences between your house, outside of your house. It's all the same. You cannot walk. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention anything about where you are. Clearly, he's probably talking about in your house. That's what you're waking up now. So you're not waking up outside, you're waking up inside your house. Just, according to Mishnah Berurah, not walking 4 amot means anywhere. Hu mamshich v'kotev, and he continues and writes, shemidat chasidut, that it's an extra level of piety, pachot me'arba amot, when you walk less than 4 amot. And get ready for a drum roll, if you thought that wasn't enough. V'afilu be'et hashena balayla, and even while you are sleeping at night. Here comes in a Kabbalistic idea, introduced by the Rizal. A shlufkap, that's what it's called. Or a shlufkapel, depending who you ask. But, you'll walk into a yeshiva dormitory, and during the day they're so serious. And suddenly you come in, they're all Breslovers. They're wearing these big white kippahs, Nachman. So what do you guys? Because they want a kippah that's not going to fall off of their head when they sleep. And therefore, the Mishnah Berurah introduces this idea that according to Kabbalah, or at least his understanding of the halachot, you don't have to wear a kippah less than 4 amot, and you don't have to wear a kippah when you sleep. But it's an extra level of piety to do both. All right. It's getting progressively worse. Is that what we're saying? No, I mean, you see that as the generations go on, the idea of kippah seems to keep taking more and more significance, not just among Talmidei Chachamim, we've already said they always covered their head, but now even among the general population. That's a good question. We mentioned before. Someone said if you're just sitting down, I think that was the Bach, I don't remember, maybe you don't have to wear a kippah, because you're just sitting. But it seems to be that if sleeping you would wear a kippah, then probably sitting would be the same thing. Yeah? Harav David Yosef.
I like the one with the roof is overhead. If the roof's overhead, then...
Yeah, well, we abandoned that ship a long time ago.
Yeah, like 3 pages ago.
It's our last opinion here. Harav David Yosef Shlita, Rabbi David Yosef, B'sifra Halacha Bura, in his book Halacha Bura. When I was writing this, the set was just coming out, so I didn't assume anybody would ever learn it. And then look at this, years later, and we're already learning it. Baruch Hashem. He's already up to Hilchot Shabbat, and he also finished 2 volumes on the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, also a commentary. He's full steam ahead. Mevi od prat miyuchad hashayach bezman hazeh. He brings down another detail that perhaps is more relevant to today. Hu kotev, he writes, and you already know this, she'asur lelech beginui harosh, you're not allowed to walk with the uncovered head. Ve'afilu bezmanenu be'eretz Yisrael, even nowadays in Eretz Yisrael. Why?
To differentiate us from other nations.
So that would apply outside of Israel. What about in Israel?
In Israel, we don't have those stuff.
It's a Jewish place.
It just reminded me, the Pope was in Israel today or yesterday, I don't know. So they, in the religious Zionist circles, you get a kippah, when you get engaged, so your kala knits you a kippah that you wear for the chuppah. So they asked the question, it was a big question in Israel today, was, if the Pope never got engaged, so how does he have a kippah, right? And where did it come from? That was, I felt it was fitting for our discussion. But yeah, so it would be to differentiate us from the people. You have to imagine, it's an incredible picture. I saw a picture today, it made me very sad. The Pope got off the airplane. To his right is Shimon Peres. To his left is Benjamin Netanyahu. He's wearing a kippah, and they're not. You know, like it was an incredible picture for me. Incredible picture. Okay. So
how's that differentiate?
what? Maybe they were wearing tzitzit. It's true, or a toupee. You never know, right?
Maybe the Pope was also.
Someone showed me another picture that showed, Benjamin Netanyahu, he gave him a menorah, a Chanukiah. I don't know if it was this trip or last trip, whatever it was. And so they captioned it and it said, "It looks like this, it's just a bit bigger. Have you seen it around somewhere?" And it was, Who kotev she'asur lech bignei harosh afilu b'zman be'eretz Yisrael. You're not allowed to walk without a head covering even nowadays in Israel. Why? Ki zeh mareh, this shows sheyesh mora HaShamayim alav. It shows that there is fear of heaven on him. V'lo k'mo elu hachiloniim, and not like these secular Jews, asher ba'avonoteinu harabim, that due to our abundant sins, pochim ol Torah u'mitzvot. They reject Torah and mitzvot. V'hakisui harosh, and the head covering, hu siman hevdel b'neinu v'beinam, is a differentiating sign between us and them. And therefore it says, forget about the goyim, forget about, we have to worry about ourselves. We have an idea to be different, l'avdil ben kodesh l'chol, to separate between what is holy and what is not holy. And we see that essentially when you see somebody without a kippah, you can already assume that he doesn't keep Torah mitzvot. It could be an incorrect assumption, but most often than not, you'll be correct. And when you see someone with a kippah, it also could be an incorrect assumption, but you can assume that he keeps Torah mitzvot, and therefore you always should want your portion to be among those people who keep Torah mitzvot. The Kotev, he writes, "Shafilu ad-datiim sheba'u michutz la'aretz," even those religious people who came from outside of Israel, bli kippot, without kippahs. Which countries were we talking about? Syria and Germany. Those were the 2 countries. Maybe it could be Morocco. I don't think so, though. Where? Iran also? Okay. Hem einam ela miuta. The miuta, they're only a minority of a minority. Essentially, he's using a term that's used when not kosher food falls into a kosher pot, meaning they're nullified in 60. We don't worry about their opinion. They should also come and join the bandwagon. V'yesh lachush mishum marit ayin. And then he pulls a wild card. This idea of marit ayin, of it looking like you're doing something wrong. K'mo shekatuv, like it says, V'itim nikiyim, you must be clean, meHashem u'Misrael, from Hashem and the Jewish people. So even if Hashem considers it maybe okay, you have to worry about what the Jewish people are going to think about you. V'gam ne'emar, it also says, U'matzah chen v'sechel tov, you should find good and grace beinei Elohim ve'adam, in the eyes of Hashem and in the eyes of the people. And then he says the following, V'agam she'en biyadeinu lehamtzi isurim midatenu, and even though we don't have the power to invent our own prohibitions, yesh lachush, it still is possible that one should suspect mishum marit ayin, that it would be problematic due to marit ayin. Someone looks at you and says, oh, he's not religious. Someone looks and says, oh, he doesn't represent Torah mitzvot. That's a problem. It's a problem that someone should look at you and say that about you. Where do you find maybe so it doesn't sound so far-fetched for you, where do you find, why do I care what other people are going to think about me? Why do I care that someone's going to look at me, oh, he's religious, oh, he's not religious? That's their problem, they're judging
why do
me.
we care? Yeah.
Where do you find a Torah precedent to such a matter?
In the Torah?
In the Torah.
Psukim?
Psukim, Chazal, around the story.
Moshe Rabbeinu didn't like you.
Oh, okay. Talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, you're right. I don't know about kippas, but talking about Moshe Rabbeinu.
You didn't?
Well, it's lucky that people thought that, like when Hannah was babbling in the, like kind of like crying and praying in Eli saw her and said, like, oh, she's like a
drunkard.
She's not a drunk. Yeah, it said she's.
But
drunk.
there, he was in the wrong and she was right.
Yeah, because I mean, like, if she hadn't been, I mean, she cares, right? Because if she didn't do anything about it, then maybe she'd be thrown out or.
Right. So, but the thing is, that's a proof against what I'm saying. Because there, Eli wasn't supposed to suspect her. He actually gets in trouble for that.
Yeah.
You mentioned Moshe Rabbeinu. Someone remember Moshe Rabbeinu? He meets some good Jewish girls. Not really Jewish, but he meets them anyways.
No, at the well.
Okay, what happens? What do they say to their father about him?
Mitzri.
Oh, even three.
We met this Egyptian man.
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu gets in big trouble when people look at him and they don't recognize him as a Jew, but they recognize him as an Egyptian.
Well, didn't you come from the royal house?
It doesn't make it. Right, you're right. Meaning the idea here is, what do you expect from Moshe Rabbeinu? He just ran away from the palace, didn't run away from the yeshiva. But at the end of the day, even Moshe Rabbeinu gets himself in trouble with the idea that someone looked at him and when they saw him, they didn't see someone Jewish. They saw someone who was a Mitzri, he was an Egyptian. And a person has to be very careful. When we dress and we act, people should look at us and be able to say, you are Jewish. You are Jewish. It's not a halakha. Halakha is however you cover your head is good. That's the halakha. I sometimes struggle if I would wear a baseball cap. Right? So if I would wear a baseball cap, then you don't worry about it, okay? I'm not saying anything about baseball caps.
I know you.
So anyways, my tzitzit are sticking out. They probably think I'm Jewish anyways. But there are situations where we dress in a certain way, a baseball cap, people don't even know that we're Jewish. So do we have, I don't know. I don't know that we have an obligation to always look in your face Jewish. I'm not convinced.
Other Jews really like you.
Other Jews know? It's like those tourists from Borough Park. They come here in Pesach and they're wearing these long black coats, but they're wearing a baseball hat, so you should never know they're Jewish, right? Like you would never guess. The life of you. You see them in the zoo and the Yankel Moshe comes, they're not Jewish though, they were all wearing baseball hats. Yeah. So, okay.
The big black hats.
I got it. There are a number of things we could go through. And it doesn't have to be the kippah, but kippah is the best way to do it. Someone should look at us and say, wow, he's Jewish. He's Jewish.
But in a galut, do we have to show that, proclaim that we are Jewish?
Well, if it's dangerous.
I understand in Israel, but in different countries, is it?
Moshe Rabbeinu was in Egypt. So you're right. If it's dangerous, so when things are dangerous, we don't do a lot of things because of the danger. But here, Baruch Hashem, so far, so for now, it's not dangerous.
Yeah, I'm not talking about danger.
In France, maybe.
Just
Yeah, we do.
cultural things.
Sure, we have an obligation to show that we're Jewish. Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons we were redeemed from Mitzrayim.
Because
With-
about Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah doesn't judge if he did right or wrong with just a statement.
Our rabbis understand him though to be wrong. Chazal understand him to be wrong. Yeah.
So in Morocco, did they wear a fez or a kippah? Because I've seen many of the
I wasn't there.
high hat, kind of like.
Perhaps both, like in Ashkenaz. They wore a hat, which the non-Jews wore, but they also wore underneath a kippah. Seems to be what it was. But I can't speak for everyone. I don't know. I wasn't there. You have to ask. If you know any old people from other countries that they lived there, you should ask them. I remember when I came here with my gold robe on Pesach, and it was, it's a Hasidic robe, and Ed Laniado came and told me it reminds me of his father, because that's what his father used to wear. See? I got one up, because in Egypt, that's what his father wore. So, essentially, I was right, and Baruch Hashem, I had someone to back me up. You should ask people from different countries, what did they do there? Just to record sometimes, different minhagim, different customs. It's interesting to know. Let's finish this letter.
But,
Yeah.
we have a time. Can you explain what good are we doing if we're proclaiming our Jewishness?
It has nothing to do...
Most of the people will say, oh, those Jews, they're everywhere,
It has nothing to do with...
or something like
They already
that.
say it even when we don't proclaim.
Yes.
But it has nothing to do with them and everything to do with us. We don't have any statements to make to the world about the fact that we're Jewish. We must make statements to ourselves that we are Jewish. And the statements should be that people differentiate us, that we're different than everyone else. It's part of our being an Am Segula.
Well, it forces us not to do Chilul Hashem.
Sure,
right?
this also
Because-
is true. I'll tell you the truth. Sometimes I look at Jews and I say, this person is a goy who keeps Shabbat. Keeps Shabbat, keeps kosher. All of his values are non-Jewish though. The music he listens to, the movies he watches, the things he talks about, everywhere he goes, nothing about him is Jewish. He keeps mitzvot. It's not why Hashem didn't ask us to keep mitzvot. Hashem asked us to live a lifestyle of what does it mean to be a Jew. And you're right. So it's an external factor. So the external factor, it can either do it or not do it. I mean, you can have a kippah and be the biggest evil person on planet Earth. I'm not saying that it promises you anything. But we have to separate ourselves, to teach our children, to teach ourselves. We are different. The only difference between me and my fellow who's not Jewish is not the fact that I'm Jewish and he's not Jewish. It's a completely different worldview. It's a completely different mission in this world. It's a completely different purpose for living. Everything is different. It's not bad. We don't expect the non-Jews to be Jews. They don't have any obligation to do so. But we have an obligation to constantly be, especially in our generation where the lines between being Jewish and not Jewish are blurred every single day.
Yeah.
You know, the tragedy of somebody marrying someone who's not Jewish. That tragedy only exists, it's not their fault. It only exists by a person who completely doesn't understand what it means to be Jewish. He thinks that he's like everybody else. I agree. If he's right that he's like everybody else, then why shouldn't he get married? But that means that he didn't grow up with that value that he's very different. And not even very different, it's not better, like we mentioned, it's not better. But the fact that somebody wants to be a traveling doctor around the world, another one wants to be a person who lives in one town, in one house, their whole life, so those two people are not a compatible shidduch. If one person's mission is to transform the whole world, and to bring godliness to the world, and to bring Hashem to the world, and that's their life mission, and the other one's mission is their career, those two people are not a good match. If a person's mission is to be an Am Segula, to be a Jew, to spread the Torah to the whole world, and the other one's mission is just to be a human being, those are two good people. They can work together on a variety of things, but that's not a proper marriage. I wouldn't set up that shidduch. If one person's flying to Australia and one person's flying to Mexico, they can't be on the same plane as much as they love each other. And what happens when people start to mix, it's because they don't realize, or at least they don't value, that there's a difference between us. I mean, until recent times, this was very... If you open up the Rambam, what you're not allowed to do with people who are not Jewish. Today we have our own... We think we're holy because we don't drink milk that has an OUD on it. That makes us holy in this country. But it used to be there were things that were much bigger than that. If you open up the Rambam, all the things we don't do because of we don't eat food that was cooked by a non-Jew. There are a number of things we don't do. Bread that was... So on and so forth.
It's not like oil.
But those are just details of a bigger concept the Rambam mentions in the Halakha, which is we don't drink socially with people who are not Jewish. We don't have dinners with people who are not Jewish. The idea being we're supposed to understand that we're different. Now there are times where a person must do all of the things above, and there are good reasons to do so. It's work. You're in an important position. You have to socialize with other people. Sure, but not every Jew is the president of Israel. Not everyone has the same responsibilities. It's not a topic we like to talk about so much, because it goes against everything we've been taught as Americans. As we're all the same, we're all equal, I don't agree that we're better than anybody else. We're very different. And very often, especially in this country, but in the whole world, our priorities are flawed, our values are mistaken because we pick them up not from inside, we pick them up from outside. And therefore, in this generation, everything someone can do to be different is better. In previous generations, I'm not convinced it was so bad. Whether you liked it or not, they reminded you were Jewish. Today, Baruch Hashem, the world is okay with us, at least in some places. Over there, Dafka, that's when you have to worry. My take on the matter. But we're at Kollel, so you can open up the floor. You're allowed to argue. We have like 3 sentences left, so you have time. You can say you don't agree, you don't like it, you know. I see Jack smiling at me.
Well, I mean, I think people live lives with non-Jews in this country, and if you set yourself apart to the extent where you're so separate that you're alienating them, it's counterproductive. It's basically creates a wall that really shouldn't be there.
Well, that was the whole big reform argument, like in the 1800s, 1900s, and like even in World War II, you had like, Rabbi Stephen Wise from the Reform is going up to Washington saying like, hey, look, we don't want to like stick our heads out too much here and not make too big a deal about the Holocaust. And it was like, the Agudat Yisrael and other people were like saying, no, we got to be loud about it. And Stephen Wise was like, it's unseemly to have like, all these old guys in big black frock coats and long beards go, marching on Washington. But in the end, they're the only ones that did in like 1943 or whatever. You didn't have any. There's like no reform march on Washington. There's just an Orthodox one. It's like, how do we? So it's like, it's like I guess you have to define productive. Like what? What? If we'd had like 4 or 5 more marches, we might have bombed Auschwitz. Instead of that would have been productive.
So let's ask them, what do you mean by productive?
No, I mean, I think...
Or counterproductive, that's better.
Yeah. The thing is that if Jews are really supposed to be a model for the world, and we have a lesson to teach the world, as Jews believe that they do, there has to be interaction. It can't just be modeling. There has to be...
Oh, yeah, that's good. It has to be, yeah, right. There has to be some sort of communication.
There has to be a connection to other people. You can't alienate people.
I don't disagree with you.
What?
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. So, there's a fine line between living a separate life. I mean, the Haredim believe that completely, that they should separate themselves from the world and not get close not only to non-Jews, but to any Jews to the left of them.
Let me explain.
And we would consider that a mistaken ideology. I would, at least.
Yeah.
I think you would too.
Yeah.
But Eli wants to explain something.
We can go back to history. In the South, small towns, they have separations, black and white. And they live together in the work field. In the field, where they're growing tobacco, they need a lot of blacks. Tobacco is labor-intensive work. They need a lot of black working there. Therefore, they work together in the field. At home, they live separately.
So you want to help out Jack over here, because clearly we don't look on that period of history as that ideal one.
Even now, Crown Heights and other places, they live same neighborhood, but they do differently things. And New York is different. Jews want to New York, but here it is different.
I understand the analogy, but I don't know that that's the model that we're trying to replicate. The black-Jewish relations in New York are almost non-existent, at least not at a positive level. And the black-white relations in the South were probably the worst that this country's ever seen. And I understand the idea of working together but not living together, but that creates different problems. Your obligation to be a light unto the nations is not in Chutz La'aretz. It's not outside of the land of Israel.
Oh, really?
Sure. As it says, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Dvar Adonai miYerushalayim. The word of Hashem and Torah only come out of Yerushalayim. Our obligation of being a light unto the nations is directly correlated to having a Beit HaMikdash. And opening up the land of Israel, and opening up the Beit HaMikdash, and opening up our way of life to the world who wants to view the world. I'm from wherever country I'm from. I want to see what it's like to live a life with God in it. I'm not allowed to proselytize to somebody because I'm Jewish. And therefore, in their land, to proselytize to them is considered pretty chutzpahdik. And according to the Torah's model of what does it mean to be a light unto the nations, it means we all go back home. And we build a Beit HaMikdash, which is kind of, imagine a big Chabad house. And we invite people in. And the Kohanim, their job is to directly work with non-Jews. I mean, that's the Kohanim's job. They don't teach it to you that way. But the Kohanim were responsible for bringing Jewish sacrifices and not Jewish sacrifices. The Levi'im were, very interestingly, not involved so much in the Beit HaMikdash. A minority of the Levi'im were involved in the Beit HaMikdash. The Levi'im were traveling teachers. Their job was to educate the people of Israel, the Jews. And what were the Jews' job in the light unto the nations? Their job was to live a life that was godly, so that when these non-Jews would come to Israel, they would see what it's like to live a life of godliness, but not to actively be teaching them anything. And that's the model, at least that we understand what it means to be a light unto the nations. And that's why we were so crestfallen about the exile. If you look at much of our literature, we don't have a temple. What's the big deal? We don't have a temple, so we'll make barbecues on Memorial Day. No, we don't make barbecue. Now, what's the big deal? How could it be that it's a house that we bring sacrifices? Okay, so we don't have it. What's that? But the rabbis viewed us not having a temple as us losing our ability to teach the world how to be better. And essentially that's why we cry about when we're in Chutz La'aretz. So you're right that we did get a different experience in Chutz La'aretz. We were able to rub shoulders with a lot of people that we would not have been able to had we been in Israel. And we perhaps did bring about many ideas to the world and to the table on a global level that we may not have been able to do from Israel. But the idea is that we should remain separate, but still care about the whole world. As the Zohar says, that we are the heart of the nations. Our job is not to control the world. We're not the brain. Although the Kuzari says we're the brain of the world. He does write such a thing. But the Zohar, we're the heart of the world. Which means our job is to pump blood into the world, but we can't move around the whole body. We have to stay right here. And we pump blood out. We don't tell the arms what to do. We don't tell the legs how to live their life. We just give them life. We enable them, if they want, to live a capacity, a life that has blood, that has spirituality. But very much our model of affecting the world has to do with being in Israel. Like last week's parsha says, "V'natati shalom ba'aretz," I gave peace in the land. Our rabbis understand "V'natati shalom ba'aretz," peace can only exist in the land, when the Jews are home, not when the Jews are abroad. And there's a lot that we don't talk about because we live in America and we're afraid to tell Jews that they have to live in Israel. So we ignore many of the things that Torah tells us, and we develop universal concepts of changing the world. I'm not against what you're saying. I don't think that we're supposed to be isolationists and live alone and forget about the rest of the world. That also leads to some sort of selfish lifestyle that Jews are not allowed to live. But definitely, when you see Jews who, more than they give to the world gives to them, if it's the things that I mentioned, the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they sing, the way they dance, we're not teaching the world yet how to do the hora more than there are more Jewish kids dancing in disco clubs. And that means that I would say, so we're failing in that department of teaching people how to dance, so we should stop dancing with people who aren't Jewish. Just because we're not so good at teaching them, we're more good at absorbing from them. And that would be our calculation. You have to be mingled and mixed in, but to know when it affects you negatively. And that's when you stop. That's my understanding of the whole picture. Some would say HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Some would say Am Yisrael, depending if you're Kuzari or if you're somebody else. The understanding of the brain of the world doesn't mean, again, not the one who tells the world what to do, but it provides the world with the capacity to do more than just what it's supposed to do. Every hand knows how to move and hold, but to give the hand a reason to do what it does, to give a philosophy to the world and reason for life, that's something that we're responsible for doing. That's why the analogy to the brain.
Jewish people are supposed to coherent of the entire population.
Right. But essentially what we say is that if there were not non-Jews in the world, we would be useless. Mm-hmm. Because what is our purpose if not to help the world? What is our purpose? What is a heart that doesn't have a body? It's in a jar in a science class. That's what it's there for. So we need the world. We need the world to be able to give and to take and to receive. And just like the heart isn't alone. We need things from the world as well. We don't purport to be the best people in the world. we purport to be the only people who have a connection to Hashem that He revealed Himself to us. Everyone else can connect to Hashem, but the way they, and I'll give this class in Shavuot, I probably do it every year. When the world connects to Hashem through a Yeshu, through a Muhammad, they're connecting to Hashem in a fraudulent fashion. And essentially we're saying, listen, we spoke to Hashem. We know how Hashem wants you to connect to Him. So come to us, we'll show you what it is that you're supposed to be doing. The second we lost our Beit HaMikdash, we lost that monopoly of teaching the world how to be spiritual. And look what happens. When do these religions start?
Afterwards.
Right after we lose our Beit HaMikdash. Right afterwards. Yeshu comes in right after that. Muhammad comes in because that's the belief in the falsehood of this Trinity concept, of this Christian idea. Muhammad actually came to bring an extra level of religion to the world that the Christians don't have. It's you might like it or not, but the Muslims religiously have more in common with us than we have with the Christians. We like to call Judeo-Christian. I don't know who made up that term, Judeo-Christian. What is a Judeo-Christian? On Claremont over there, they have a Kehillat Ariel. You know what I'm talking about? Those are Judeo-Christians, but we are not Judeo-Christians. We are very much an Eastern religion that has a lot more in common with those religions. But essentially, you see that the Jewish people has a mission, and the mission is to bring things to the world, but we also have to receive from the world. I'm sure there are better scientists than the Jewish people. There are better doctors than there are the Jewish people. There are better. Math didn't come from the Jewish people. Math came very much from the Arab worlds and numbers and all these things. We believe that we're supposed to take from the world also, but we have what to give them also. It's supposed to be a very. I think the word is a symbiotic relationship. Yeah, we're supposed to. It's a give and take. And you're right. There has to be a healthy way to do it, and the way our rabbis understand it is to do that while living in Israel. Maybe if I can speak for two more minutes about this. Who's allowed to live in Israel with us?
The Mormons.
No. Who's allowed to live with us in Israel?
They got more passports. Easy passports.
The Pope. It's not true. It's not true. Nobody. Are non-Jews allowed in the land of Israel?
Yeah.
They're living there.
They have.
Yes. Not as avadim. No, not just slaves.
Maybe the Noahides are allowed there. Maybe only the.
When you keep seeing the ger hagar b'tochim, who lives, it's not talking about a convert. A convert is Jewish.
Yeah.
We're talking about a ger. This is a person who's a sojourner. I know the word. So you have to look at Rashi when it's talking about a convert and when it's talking about someone who's a traveler. There are times where it speaks in both. But very often the ger, if you open up the Rambam Hilchot Menachim, it's called a ger toshav. It's a non-Jew who lives in the land of Israel. A non-Jew is allowed to live in the land of Israel on two conditions. He does not worship idols. He doesn't have to be Jewish, but he cannot worship idols. He has to have a form of religion that is allowed. There are halachot to what kind of religion a non-Jew is allowed to have. This is the whole debate. Are Muslims allowed to be Muslims? The answer is yes. Where we come into trouble is, are Christians allowed to be Christians? Some rabbis say no. And some rabbis say yes, but Jews are not allowed to be Christians. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole idea of a trinity, is it Avodah Zarah? Many commentators say, for Christians, it's not Avodah Zarah. For Jews, it is Avodah Zarah. Because we have to have a purer form of monotheism than that. Now, I think we very much shortchange ourselves as Jews when we don't discuss so much the halachot of non-Jews and the way that we believe the world should look in an ideal level. I think a lot of the philosophy that we lose when we discuss mitzvot is only a Jewish concept. But back to what I was saying, the second condition about a non-Jew living in the land of Israel, we must treat him like an equal in all kinds of things. And the non-Jew has rights in the land of Israel. He has to be protected in the land of Israel. He has to be cared for in the land of Israel. Only one thing he is not allowed to do in the land of Israel. Do you know?
He's not allowed to?
You can't own land.
Proselytize.
Can you own land?
Okay, that's for sure. That's why he can't be an Avodah Zarah.
I know they go on.
No, he's allowed to go to the Beit HaMikdash every day of the year if he wants.
Jewish lady.
Oh, that's obvious. I mean, the things that those are prohibited because
Own land?
he's not allowed to be involved in the government of Israel.
So what about
His job is to live, and we have a job to protect him. But he cannot be the king of Israel. He cannot be the advisor of Israel. He cannot be the general of the Israeli army. He cannot be. Those are left for what?
Knesset.
It's a good question.
Member of the Knesset.
It's a good question. There are some opinions who say that a non-Jew is allowed to be in a body like the Knesset if his purpose is there to ensure that his people have rights in the land of Israel, because who else is going to represent him if not him? Some make the argument that today those who are non-Jews and are sitting in Knesset are not sitting in Knesset to ensure the rights of their people under Israeli sovereignty. Rather, they're telling the world, we are here because we don't believe that the land belongs to them. We believe that it belongs to us. To which the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, in a halachic letter, not in a halachic letter, that this person is considered a thief because he believes that the land belongs to him, in which case he's automatically disqualified from being part of the Knesset because he doesn't follow the 7 mitzvot of Noach, which is an interesting discussion. There are a lot of halachot that go into where do the non-Jews stand in Israel. The bottom line is we must take care of them like everyone else in Israel. Just they cannot be the ones who set the tone of religion or national life in Israel.
We can make it rule. If you want to be a member of the Knesset, you have to accept these things and take a vote on these things. Then you're allowed to.
The last guy who tried to make a rule that Knesset members must be loyal to the state of Israel got himself killed. The Knesset voted him out and he got killed. That's the last time anyone ever tried. The Knesset believes it's anti-democratic to force someone to be loyal to the state of Israel and be a Knesset member.
Oops.
What to do then?
You don't have to swear loyalty to Israel to be a Knesset member. That's the answer to
So
the
you
question.
can be planning like.
Yes.
There are people that are
I mean,
there.
you can act in a treasonous fashion as a Knesset member and still use your diplomatic immunity.
What?
Sure. It happens all the
You can get
time.
like the whole.
It's not the first time. It's an incredible country. We Jews are the best at making. We're not our own worst enemies. We create our own worst enemies. Like we're the best at this. So let me a few last sentences. En birtzoni lachria. I said I don't want. This is me speaking. I do not want to stick my head ben gdolei olam, between the giants of the world, v'aposkim, and the halachic decisors. Asher mimehem anachnu chaim. That from their waters we live. Umidivreihem, and for their words, lo nasur yamin u'smol, we will not veer or deviate right or left. Elarak, and we turn the page. I only came le'orer, to bring up u'levarer, and to clarify its sugyatenu, our sugya, our Talmudic piece. Lefi ma shematzati le'aniyut dati, to what I have found according to my, interesting expression, aniyut dati, to my poor mind. Vi ratzon, maybe Hashem's will, shebischut mitzvat kisoy harosh, that the merit of the mitzvah of covering our head, nisker lalot ma'ala ma'ala b'torah v'yirat shamayim, we should grow higher and higher in Torah and yirat shamayim. V'nisker la'amid banim u'vnei banim, we should raise children and children of children, haoskim b'torah v'mitzvot, who study Torah mitzvot, ad biat goel tzedek, until our righteous Redeemer comes, b'mirav yameinu, speedily in our days. Amen. So what's our conclusion? What does it seem to be that we're ending off? On what note are we ending off? Do you have to wear a kippah or do you not?
Do.
We should, because we observe Torah.
One way or another, someone's going to pin something on you. If it's not looking like a non-Jew, if it's observing Torah, if it's whatever reason, if it's tzniut, if it's covering part of your head that's normally covered, whatever it is that we're going to throw at you. But let's say, to be intellectually honest, and to go back to the words of Maran, the Shulchan Aruch. Asur lelech b'koma zkufa. It's forbidden to walk with an arrogant posture. V'lo yelech b'gilui harosh, and you should not walk with your head uncovered. What does he say there? Arba amot, 4 amot. What is Maran telling us? What do you really think? If you have to be honest, what's Maran's opinion? Do you have to wear a kippah? Is it forbidden to not wear a kippah? That's the better question.
I think he said it's...
No. It's highly recommended, but from which point? Above 4 amot. Beneath 4 amot, you would have to work very hard to convince us that Maran believes that less than 4 amot you have to wear a kippah. After 4 amot, you have to wear a kippah, but it's not a prohibition if you do not wear a kippah. This would mean that, can you be lenient in regards to an arrogant posture?
No.
Are there perhaps places where one could be lenient regarding a head covering? If you would ask a posek a question, probably there are places that come up that a posek would say, here you might not have to wear a head covering, or here, due to the fact that there are many opinions who say that it's not a must. It's just a strongly suggested thing. And when a Talmud strongly suggests something to us, and Maran strongly suggests something to us, I strongly suggest we take his strongly suggested opinion, because he's strongly suggesting it for a reason. On the other hand, it should maybe give us a little bit of leeway to judge people favorably when we see that they don't cover their head, or they're not covering their head properly, or. And this is again all in regards to walking, in regards to praying or davening or making brachot. Everyone must wear kippah. Everyone agrees to that. But let's say you have someone at your table and they're sitting. They came to your couch to visit you. You don't have to force them to wear a kippah. You know, when a priest comes to the kotel, you don't have to make him wear a kippah. Like that, it's not our biggest fight. When you see a kid, he's running around without a kippah. So maybe you want to teach him that he should wear a kippah. But you don't need to beat him up when he doesn't wear his kippah. You know, like it's not what's going to make or break halakha. But you should see that it's an important thing. Yet there's room to wiggle around around it, depending where you want to wiggle. But B'ezrat Hashem, that's our understanding of the entire sugya. Where are we holding in the book? I just want to know what we're going to do tomorrow.
Page 34. I think.
Yes.
That's where I stopped taking notes.
Yes. We are on 21, Chav Aleph. How many of you are with us for Shavuot? Can I see by a raise of hands? Who's here for
I
Shavuot?
think.
In San Diego? In University City?
Tomorrow.
You're in La Jolla, right?
Well, I'll be in San Diego.
But are you going to be in La Jolla for Chag?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're also in home. I was thinking, what if we did our siyum on Shavuot? But I don't want people that are not here to miss out on that.
Well, I could come. I could walk over.
Yeah, would you?
We can invite all the Kollel guys to stay here for Shavuot and make like a...
Moshe Chaim, maybe you'll join us for the holiday. We'll say what the place to stay. In front of everyone, I'm putting pressure on you. For Shavuot. For 6 people, we'll find somewhere.
We got space.
I have somebody in mind. Let me talk to them.
Okay. Think about it. Maybe if we can. And if you'd like, I don't know if you do stay up all night Shavuot, you go to sleep.
Yeah, well, I have stayed up all night at dot, but why you've been doing?
No, we're having a dinner here Shavuot night. It's a very inexpensive dinner here at night.
Both shows, many shows
have a Shavuot, and then we'll be staying up on that. But if someone doesn't want to stay up, I'll make the siyum during dinner. That way it'll be a nice thing. And everyone wants to go to sleep, they can go to sleep. They don't have to. And that way we can make a beautiful dinner. It's already being made, and we will have a nice event, and we can sing a dance with the whole community. It'll be something very special. We can show you off to the community.
And then force you to move here first.
Barry, don't say all the secrets out loud. It's not all at once. Baruch Hashem. Okay. So God willing, tomorrow we will finish this chapter, and you should know the next section is you should be warned. Do you want to warn them? Should I warn them? The next section, you want to make sure you eat dinner before you come to the classes. That's all I'm telling you. It's all about the halachot of the Beit HaKiseh, about the bathroom. All kinds of halachot about the bathroom. This is 17 simanim, the siifim. This goes all the way to page 53. So it's almost
as much as what
it's almost as much as we did the first one. This is a pretty short chapter, Chelik Bet, right? And it's almost as long as that. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be a very awkward moment, so you may want to pretend you don't know anybody after this, but it's going to be an interesting discussion. B'ezrat Hashem. And it's Torah hi v'limod anachnu tzrichim. It's Torah. We must learn. I'll share with you. I can't share with you the story. Never mind. But essentially, there are many things in Torah you must learn. They're part of the Torah, and God willing, that will be one of them. But let's tomorrow night plan for finishing this piece, and then God willing, we will have our siyum on Shavuot tonight, the first night of Shavuot.
Shavuot night's next Tuesday night.
Next Tuesday night.